हाँ जी, हमने नेक्स्ट पढ़ा था राइट द क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ ए सिंगुलरिटी। इसमें रिमूवेबल सिंगुलरिटी, पोल्स एंड एसेंशियल आइसोलेटेड singularity. Does the Lorentz expansion made use in singularity? Yes. Define removable singularity. Is the principal part of f of z at z is equal to z naught consists of no terms, then the z naught is called the removable or artificial singularity of f of z. Give some example of artificial singularity. The function f of z sin z by z has removable singularity. F of z is equal to 1 minus cos of z is equal to divided by z square. It has no principal part, therefore f of z has a removable singularity at z is equal to 0. Z f of z is equal to e z minus 1 divided by z has a removable singularity at z is equal to 0. Define isolated essential singularity. If the principal part of f of z at z is equal to z naught consists an infinite number of atoms, then z is equal to z naught is called the isolated essential singularity of f of z. Give some example of isolated essential singularity. F of z is equal to 1 e is equal to 1 by z, 1 plus 1 by z, 1 divided by 2 factorial z square, इसी तरह so on, has infinite number of terms in the principal part of f of z, therefore z is equal to 0 is an essential isolated singularity. B is f of z, b is equal to sine 1 by z is equal to 1 by z 1 by 3 factorial z cube has an essential singularity at z is equal to 0. Define pole. If the principal part of a function f of z at z is equal to z naught consists of a finite number of terms, say m, then f of z has a pole of order m at z is equal to z naught. Give an example. Equivalent statement to define the pole. A singularity of finite order is called a pole. What is a simple pole? If the pole is of order 1, then it is called a simple pole. Give an example of a simple pole. F of z is equal to 1 by z minus 3 has a pole of order 1 at z is equal to 3. Give an example of a simple pole. F of z is equal to sine hyperbolic z has a pole of order 1 at z is equal to 0. Give an example of a higher order pole. ये f of z sin h of z hyperbolic z is divided by z7 has a pole of order 6 at z is equal to 0. F of z 5 by z minus 6 by z square has a pole of order 3 at z is equal to 0. F of z is equal to 2 by z power 1 plus 4 by z2 has a pole of order 7 at z is equal to 0. What is the meromorphic function? A function which has a pole has its only singularity in the finite part of a plane is called a meromorphic function. Give an example of a meromorphic function. F of z is equal to z square plus 1 z plus 1 z square plus 4. It has a finite number of poles as z is equal to 0, minus 1 plus minus 2 iota. Therefore, it is a meromorphic function because the expressed at z is equal to 0, minus 1 plus minus 2 iota. The function is analytic everywhere. Give an example of a function which is neither entire or meromorphic. F of z is equal to z sine 1 by z. What can you say about the similarity for the following function? F of z is equal to sine 1 by z. It is an essential singularity at z is equal to 0. It is neither entire nor meromorphic function. What is the residue at a pole? Z is equal to z naught be a pole of order m of f of z so that f of z can be expanded as a Lorentz series. F of z is equal to z by n z minus z naught की power n plus b1 z minus z naught b2 z minus z naught की power 2 bn z minus z naught की power m, where bm बराबर नहीं है 0, then the coefficient b1 which may be 0 in the certain cases is called the residue of f of z at z is equal to z naught. If f z बराबर है z naught is a simple pole, then the residue at z is equal to z naught is b1 limiting value z की value z naught z minus z naught f of z, then the residue at a pole z is equal to z naught is the coefficient of 1 minus divided by z minus z naught. ये आपने रेजिड्यू एट ए पोल की डेफिनेशन पढ़ी है, एफ ऑफ जी वेयर बी वन को ये एक्सप्लेन कि एफ ऑफ जी ये इसके बराबर हो, रेजिड्यू वेयर बी ज़ीरो नहीं है, देन कोफिशिएंट बी वन इज कॉल्ड अ रेजिड्यू ऑफ एफ ऑफ जी if z is a simple node and a residue at z is equal to z node is b1 की वैल्यू गिवन है. गिवन एग्जांपल, coefficient z is equal to z node is the coefficient of 1 divided by z minus z node is the principal part of a Laurent expansion of f of z. Given example of a isolated and non-isolated singularity f of z is sin 1 by z is an isolated singularity of z. ठीक है, एफ ओ सी टेन 1/z साइन ओवर कोस में ये है 1/z और कोस 1/z इज विच इज ए नॉन आइसोलेटेड एसेंशियल सिंगुलरिटी विच ऑफ टाइम इज ट्रू. इसमें फाल्स हम देख लें ट्रू क्या है. एफ ऑफ जी माइनस साइन ऑफ जी क्यूब जी इज इक्वल टू जीरो आइसोलेटेड एसेंशियल सिंगुलरिटी ऑफ एफ ऑफ जी इज इक्वल टू जीरो रिमूवेबल सिंगुलरिटी ऑफ एफ ऑफ जी is equal to z की पावर 2 has a pole of order 2 at z is equal to infinity. F of z is equal to 2z has an isolated singularity as z is equal to here. ठीक है, a function which has no singularity in a finite part of a plane and has a pole of order and at infinity is a polynomial degree of n. If a single value function has no singular other than poles in the finite part of a plane or at infinity, then f of z is a function, a rational function. As a rational function singularity other than poles, no. What is the minimum what is the minimum modulo principle? F of z be analytic inside a closed control and f of z बराबर नहीं 0 inside C, then f of z must attain its maximum minimum value on C. State the argument principle theorem. F of z be a meromorphic inside a has no 0 on C, then 1 over 1 minus 2 iota integral f dash of z f of z where n is the number of 0 and p is the number of poles. Number of poles inside C. A poles of 0 of order n may be counted n time. A state Rauchy theorem. F of z and z of z be analytic inside and on a simple closed curve C, and let z of z modulus value less than f of z on C, then f of z and f of z plus z of z has the same number of 0 inside C. What you know about the residue at a point infinity? Residue at a point infinity defined as minus 1 by z divided by z is equal to limiting value minus z f of z provide limiting value z is की 0 है, provide the limit has a definite value. State Cauchy residue theorem. F of z in analytic expect at a finite number of poles within a closed control C and a continuous on a boundary of C, then integral f of z d of z 2 pi iota iota की power 1 by n r iota where sigma r is the sum of a residue of f of z at a pole within C. Define the residue as z is equal to infinity in an integral form. Residue as z is equal to infinity in the form of integral define as z r f infinity 1 by 2 iota iota minus c f of z d of z. Define branch of a multi-value function w बराबर f of z is any single value function which is analytic in some domain D. What is the branch single value function which is analytic in some domain C? What is a branch point? It is a point down which is completion of a dispersion of a circuit alter the value of a function or yield a new value of the function. ठीक है. What is a branch cut? It is a tactile hurdles or a barrier which prevents the description of a complete circuit round on a branch point. Such a barrier is called a branch cuts across cut or branch line. ठीक है, अब आगे है नेक्स्ट आ जाता है कंटोर इंटीग्रेशन। शुक्रिया बहुत।